Today we have a story of a crazy entitled dad who wants their grandkid named after them. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, happy first Mother's Day to my infant daughter. Love, my entitled family. Good evening, r/entitled parents. You may remember me from that time my mother tried to push me towards an elective C-section. You do not have to go back to that post to understand this one. However, since then, my parents have made amends with me. Our renewed relationship was going so well that I decided to take myself and my now 4-month-old daughter on a trip down to Sydney for a visit. As I'm back on the sub, I'm sure you already know that this was a big freaking mistake. Aside from seeing my parents, I was looking forward to having a break from regional Queensland. I had hoped to watch the world go by at Cremorne Park with my baby one day, or maybe grab a burger at whatever new joint my youngest brother had found, and maybe do some shopping. Well, I'll be doing none of that, as no one under the age of 55 is insured to drive my parents' car, making me somewhat housebound. That's fine. I should have asked before coming and maybe hired a car myself, so I'll take the L on that one. I figured my daughter and I could just spend some quality time with my family at home instead. Or maybe that would have been possible if my parents didn't insist on watching every single NRL game every single freaking night. And we can't even be in the same room as them while they do that because their 2 dogs cannot possibly rough it outside. So for my daughter to have a little kick around on her play gym, she and I need to relegate ourselves into a separate room. I was feeling a little low about all of this until today, Mother's Day, my first one ever, and now I feel miserable and full of regret for having come at all. My mother and my nana were gifted with bottles of wine and flowers. I received nothing. My daughter, however, received so many gifts you would have thought it was her first birthday. I was forgotten and was told, "Oh, I didn't even realize it was your first Mother's Day." Despite this, I was determined to remain in good spirits. So I put my daughter in her pram so that she would have a seat while she watched some Disney and I could get myself a glass of wine. While strapping her in, my brother, who lives about 5 minutes away and who heard me have a full conversation with my mom about Disney for baby and wine for me, decided the basketball was more important, and I was met with, "Oh, maybe your baby will like basketball instead. She can watch Disney tomorrow." As if we're moving in permanently with them and not just here for a week. I have had zero control of that TV since arriving 4 days ago, and this was the one time I wanted to give her just a little screen time. And she loves it every now and again too. Listening to her laugh and gurgle at the Jungle Book is the cutest thing in the world. And she was denied of that one small luxury before the real bowl of the day commenced. After the extended family arrived, they played every new mother's favorite game of Pass the Baby, but as lunch was served, the new favorite toy was forgotten on her playmat, only to be discovered by my 4-year-old cousin, not being watched by my aunt, who immediately dropped an iPad on her head. I'd barely eaten any lunch when I had to go and rescue her. It had been 3 hours and I'd barely had time to eat, use the toilet, or have a sip of water because I was so busy fussing over my baby. During this time, barely anyone aside from my brother and aunt spoke to me. Everyone else had a lovely time drinking champagne and catching up as if it was their first time seeing family in 2 years. Once everyone had left, the NRL went back on. I tended to my daughter and got her ready for bed. Once she was down for the evening, I came into the kitchen to realize that there would be no chance of dinner as everyone else in the house had decided that they had enough food at lunch. At this point, I confronted everyone remaining and was met with the most absolutely obtuse response from my father, who sarcastically told me he would just cancel my brother's birthday dinner to make up for everything. After pointing this out to him, he declared that he felt sick and left for bed. My mom stayed up with me and got me some wine, which was nice, but it doesn't unfreak my first Mother's Day, and it doesn't undrop an iPad on my daughter's head. So my lesson has been learned. I will never be coming back here, and I will never be spending another event with this side of the family ever again. If they want to see their granddaughter or me again, they can come out to the sticks in Queensland. Yeah, it just sounds like a bunch of inconsiderate people raised by inconsiderate people and taught to be inconsiderate. I'm not saying that they at the drop of a time have to be helping OP and all of a sudden taking over and taking care of their kid, but it doesn't take a genius to see that they were just straight up dismissive of OP. OP going out of their way to be there and they could barely even give them the time of day. Excellent ad 1132 wrote, "Why let them come to you? Cut them off. Because I would bet if they came to your house, they will do the same crap they were doing at theirs, and then guilt you for not being a better host. If they call to come visit, just tell them no, stay home. They can't seem to treat you as a family member, so I claim them as family. Tell them maybe when your child is 21 she might want to see them, but I would bet since they'll be strangers to your child, I would doubt it. You don't even sound like an afterthought to them, so just cut them out of your life. Why waste the energy on people who obviously don't really care about you or your feelings? OP responded and said, I hate that I have to agree with this. They've not even picked grandparent names because they don't want to sound old. I'm sure that my daughter won't miss people who refuse to associate themselves as grandparents. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy stories of entitled parents, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, my mom accused my girlfriend of abusing me in front of both of us. My girlfriend and I came over to see my parents the other day. When we arrived, everything seemed great. My mom was healthy, positive, in a good mood. Everyone was. But specifically her, who had been unhealthy in recent weeks, so it was nice. It immediately devolved from there. My girlfriend and I engage in light roasting with each other, obviously understanding that it is in no way serious. She tells me to go freak myself, I tell her she's terrible at video games when she dies in a game, for example, but we're both laughing and very obviously joking with each other when we do it. And my mom decided that now, unprompted by a comment of that sort at all, that she would inform us both that she feels so bad for me, that she tells her friends how mean she is, that her friends constantly ask for their daughters if I'm single yet, and that the first time she heard her do one of her roasty jokes, she locked herself in the bedroom and cried for hours, which she absolutely did not do. She then went on another tirade about my girlfriend being rude to her over the phone. In a phone call she doesn't even remember because she woke from a dead sleep to answer it, on a day that we were all extremely stressed out because our cat nearly died. My girlfriend acknowledged that she maybe could have been a little short because she was asleep, but didn't remember the conversation at all, and would never in a million years be rude to my mom for no reason. My mom saw these conversations as airing grievances and having an adult conversation, but my girlfriend and I are obviously way more offended by what she said. In the moment, we both were just frozen in shock because that call happened 5 months ago, and I had absolutely no thought that she would ever bring that up at all. We got home later and spent all night talking about it and have no idea how to handle this at all. Today is Mother's Day and I don't even want to text her. It's such a shame because I do love her very, very much, but she does this to all of my partners, some of my friends, and even her own friends. She makes up things to make herself seem more innocent. She can be super mean. She gets upset if you don't immediately respond to texts. She's incredibly judgmental, and she can never be wrong, and if she is, she throws a fit. She gets involved in my relationships too closely and it's killing me a little. I don't know what to do anymore. A comment I totally agree with and really I think hits the nail on the head was written by TrippyNet. They wrote, I'd suggest having a talk with her and laying down some ground rules, such as not interfering in your relationships, accepting that sometimes people are busy and cannot respond to a text immediately. You might not have even have read it. If this doesn't work, perhaps a short break of low contact might be an idea to see if your mom comes to her senses or not. Either way, something has to change for your own mental health. Our next story is, my mom turns my room into her own rage room whenever I do something bad. My mom, 40, turns my 14 trans male room into her personal rage room if I do anything that she doesn't like. For example, she trashed both of my TVs. One week the first, next week the other, and poured the cat litter when I said, cat litter is my chore, and she refuses to acknowledge it. My dad, love him, he's great, told her she broke it and she said, it was her fault. I'm a trans guy. Honestly, if your dad is that great of a guy, you need to be able to lean on him more in this situation considering how old you are, and hope that he's going to do the things that he needs to do to stand up for you, when clearly OP's being exposed to some abusive behaviors. Appropriate Beat 364 wrote, that woman is abusive. Is there a counselor at school you can talk to? What you described isn't normal in any way. OP responded saying, there is one. I'm just scared because they both are friends. Our next story is, my entitled mom wants me to pay my creep stepbrother's student debt. I, 29-year-old female, have an older stepbrother, Chris, 42-year-old male, who has been a nightmare since the day my mom married his dad. Let me give a bit of background. Our parents married when I was 4 and he was 17. Both our parents were widowed. After their wedding, we moved to the US since my mom had American citizenship through marriage. I was born in the US too, but after my dad died when I was 1, my mom and I moved back to Colombia. Stepdad got his residency through marriage and my stepbrother because he was a minor. My stepbrother wasn't a big fan of me. My only memories of him are just constant bullying. He would be left in charge of me since he was studying locally and lived with my parents, but mostly his babysitting really meant things like locking me in the guest bathroom or the shed outside. He would steal my lunchbox whenever he was the one who dropped me off at school. He even began to harm my pets. I have an old cat who's been with me for almost 22 years. He tried more than once to run her over with his car. My parents never believed any of it. He's the classic golden child. My mom absolutely wanted a son instead of a daughter, so my stepbrother took priority over me. The bullying just kept getting worse and creepier. He had this long key for the bathroom. The door was designed in case it got locked by accident. One could open them by inserting a long stick or key through a small hole on the outside. He would use it to walk in on me showering. My underwear would disappear sometimes and I know for a fact it was him. He also started taking pictures of me sleeping. One night I woke up to him taking care of himself next to me while I slept. I yelled, obviously. My parents came over, but he wasn't in trouble. I was for tempting him. I was 14 when this happened. He was 27. No one helped me, and he got bolder until he did something I'm still in therapy for when I was 16. It got to a point where I called my biological half-older brother Sam, 48-year-old male and son of my biological father's first wife, to see if I could live with him and his wife Sandy during my last 2 years of high school. When Sam found out what was going on, he confronted my mom. My mom didn't care and just told him to take me so long as he never asked her for money. Done and done. My brother and his wife became my legal guardians and took me in with my cat and the old family dog since I didn't trust any living creature with Chris around. My parents never checked on me. My extended family from my father's side knew what happened, and they immediately got together to ensure I could finish school well and go to college. I don't know my maternal family at all. Thanks to my paternal family, including Sam's mother and her family, I got my bachelor's and master's, no student debt, and work as a nurse practitioner. I still live with Sam, his wife, and their 2 kids, and I pay a small rent. Neither Sam nor his wife expected me to pay anything, but that's the least I can do for the 2 people who have taken care of me for 13 years. For anyone wondering why I didn't move, it's incredibly expensive where I live, and Sam insisted I stay with them until I save enough to buy my own home. Things seemed okay until my mom messaged me recently. She hadn't messaged me since I was 18 when she told me she no longer had any responsibility to me. In this message, she sounded overly friendly, telling me how she missed me and asking how I was doing. I was a bit creeped out, but decided to be nice, telling her about what I'd done since leaving her care. She seemed very interested since apparently she knew I was a nurse, but not what kind I was. She began asking me about my salary. I didn't tell her anything about it, but that it was enough to pay the bills. My mom then began texting about Chris and how he was barely making any money due to his student debt. Apparently, Chris never finished a degree, jumping from career to career. He's now working in my stepdad's used car business as a salesman, but most of his pay went to pay the substantial student debt he got over the summer. I told my mom how sorry I was that Chris was having a hard time and wished him luck. That's when my mom finally got to what she wanted. She texted me that I needed to pay his student debt so he could finally begin to make the money he deserves like the man of the family. I just turned off my phone. When I got home, Sam was surprised since I was usually the last to arrive. Sandy wasn't home yet. I told Sam what happened and showed him my mom's text messages. I don't think I've seen Sam this angry ever. He told me to block my mom, stepdad, and Chris if I hadn't done so yet. After talking with Sam and Sandy, I called my boss to ask the next day and the one after off. This gave me a 4-day weekend, including the days I'm normally off shift. My boss was more than okay with this and told me to just take it easy and let her know if she could help. This backfired because the next day my mom and Chris decided to come to Sam's house to speak to me. I was alone since Sam and Sandy were at work and the kids were at school. I immediately called Sam and told him what was going on. He told me to not open the door and that he was on his way. My mom spent the whole time screaming that I owed them for raising me and that my sweet brother deserved the money. Chris was going around trying to find a window or door unlocked. There wasn't since the windows have safety bars and the only other door is in the closed garage and the one in the yard. The yard one was locked and just in case, I locked the one in the garage. I won't post what he called me when he saw me from one of the windows, but basically he pretty much told me they should have thrown me away when I was a baby since I grew to be a B. He pounded in one of the windows so hard, he actually cracked the glass. Eventually he gave up and went back to the front door, clearly trying to kick it down. I didn't have anything to worry about. The door was a security door, but I was still very scared. Between yelling, threatening, pleading, and insults, I finally heard Sam screaming to them to get lost. I only saw things from the window. Sam pretty much dragged them both off the porch. They got to a point I couldn't hear, but I saw my mom and Chris pale and looking scared before they pretty much ran to their car and drove off way past the legal speed limit. Sam came in a bit after and immediately went full overprotective brother mode, asking me if I was okay. He kept saying sorry and hugging me. Sandy arrived almost immediately after, and she looked like she was about to commit a felony. Apparently, Sam threatened him with filing charges for what he did to me when I was 16. My brother's ace? My stepdad was willing to testify against his own son. That seemed enough to get Chris off our backs, but not my mom. Since then, it's been 3 days and my mom has sent texts, called nonstop with various numbers, and rallied a group of people who are supposedly my maternal family to harass me for money. She claims that money should legally be hers since she's my mother, that it's my late father's missed child support. Sam is helping me find a lawyer to get a restraining order on my mom, and I plan to take my stepdad's offer to testify by pressing charges against Chris. I can't say I can forgive him for not stopping his son, but I appreciate he's at least trying. I don't know the details, but Chris did something to a relative of his dad, and since then they've had a really bad fallout. I took my boss's offer and will be on vacation for a few more days. But here it is. My vacation days are getting eaten up and my therapist might need a therapist after. Thankfully, my dark sense of humor and supportive paternal family are keeping me somewhat sane. Honestly, it takes a lot to be sane after all that OP experienced. I mean, the whole thing is crazy. I'm just glad and happy for OP that A, they're going forward trying to get a restraining order, but B, they're also trying to hold this guy accountable for this monstrous thing he did. Drybite9885 wrote, "Love, take a breath. You've been through a lot in a very small amount of time. Breathe. I know you need it. I'm so sorry your own mother is doing this to you. It sounds like Sam and Sandy are helping you do everything correctly though. I'm so glad you have them to back you up." Our next story is, do I have an entitled mother? I'm sorry if this is a bit dramatic. It's Mother's Day weekend and my mom is constantly bringing it up and asking what we're gonna do for her and genuinely acting like it's the most important thing of the year. That wouldn't be a big deal at all if she wasn't acting so spoiled. My siblings were play fighting all the way down the stairs, and you can barely hear them, and she started screaming at them because they won't let her rest and are ruining her Mother's Day weekend. I also got a guitar with my own money, and I was tuning it later that night and accidentally snapped a string, and went up to tell my parents and was kinda panicking because at that time, I thought snapping a string was a big deal, and she started screaming that everyone was ruining her Mother's Day weekend and threw a slipper at the wall and ran into her room. Also, she says everyone is ruining her Mother's Day weekend, but got $600 to $700 of stuff in gifts. Sorry if my post has horrible spelling and grammar. I'm really bad at that stuff. OP's not crazy, they're not insane, and I would agree that if they're not at least entitled, they have some serious issues. I mean, it's blatantly abusive behavior OP's having to put up with. Attempt Weary wrote, "All the screaming is so unnecessary and a bit immature. Mom should be able to communicate her expectations for the day kindly. I'm going to gently suggest that if you're old enough to play guitar, you're old enough to be a bit more considerate at night. Your parents probably work and take care of kids. They're probably tired at night, and if it's not life-threatening, it can wait until tomorrow." Our next story is, my grandmother shamed me for my plans to be a mother. I'm 17-year-old female. I know I'm young to ever think that far into my future, but it's one of the goals I've made for myself. I had a rough upbringing, and if I can never make my family atone for all that they've done, then all I can do is raise children of my own and do better by them. I had to call my grandmother, we'll call her P, because she had really bad arthritis in her hands and typing makes it act up. She wanted to know if I wanted some vintage clothes she found in storage. She sent me the pictures and I decided which ones I wanted, but when I was about to say bye to keep it brief, she asked out of nowhere if I had any plans for the future since I'm a year off from being an adult. I don't normally like talking to her. She can become rude and passive-aggressive, plus she's the biggest narcissist in the family, and the main reason we all went our separate ways during quarantine, she destroyed the mental health of every child raised under her roof over a period of years, including myself, my father, his brother and sister, and 2 of their cousins. I had to think about my answer to her question for a second. Then I slowly told her I wanted to raise a family of my own at some point down the road. But her response immediately made me hang up. She said, well, I'd watch out. Pregnancy makes you gain weight, and the way you already are, I don't think that's such a good idea. Plus, I'd feel bad for them poor kids if they came out autistic like you, is what she said. It was surprising enough that I remember it word for word, but it just kept echoing in my head. Her comment on my body and my mental condition, both of which she used as reasons why I should rethink being a parent. Should I have just not told her and kept my plans to myself? I really thought that after about 3 years of me not living with her that she'd be better about saying things like that, but I guess I was wrong. Her words still haunt me almost a month later. I don't know what to do. I think it's time to just cut her off, never talk to her again, screw the vintage clothes and whatever hand-me-downs they have. A person like that should not be in your life. Somebody like that is only a cancer to you, let alone the established historical lineage she's put down. Shadow Fox wrote, what is so bad about people with autism? I think I'd much rather deal with family members who are autistic than family members who are rude or mean like she is. Your plans are normal for someone your age. You should be thinking ahead and seeing what you want to do. Not like you told her you're getting pregnant the day you turn 18. She won't stop saying things like that because she isn't a good person. Cut her off as much as you can. Our next story is, entitled Mom Brought Her Young Daughter to Sexy Adult Dance Class. I'm part of a community group that hosts dance classes for adults. Our whole premise is to provide a space for adults to learn dances on a casual basis and have fun. The songs we dance to often have explicit lyrics, and some of the choreography can be suggestive. Recently, someone brought their young daughter to sit in at a heels class. The song was explicit, and the moves were very sexy, and I immediately felt very uncomfortable dancing in front of this child. Not only that, but the child was causing distractions by dropping her metal water bottle, pacing around, and going up and hugging her mom during class. By the end, she was even copying the sexy moves we were doing. Yuck. Our group is very unofficial and laid back, and we've never had this situation come up, even though we advertise as adult and 18+ classes. So afterward, we sent her a private message saying, hey, we would love for you to keep coming to class, but going forward, we're not going to allow kids. She was livid. She called us inconsiderate and accused us of discriminating against single moms. Says she can't do childcare because of her daughter's medical condition. She's not worried about her daughter hearing explicit lyrics, so it shouldn't be an issue. Okay, good for you, but that's not the only issue. If we allow one person to bring their kid, then everybody can bring their kid and it becomes a childcare issue. It's also clearly an adult environment and children just don't mesh in adult environments. The same way you wouldn't bring a child to a bar. It's just awkward for everyone else. So entitled. Like, I get it, I feel bad for them if they have no other option for childcare, but bringing your kid to an 18+ dance class where you're learning in heels and making these raunchy moves and whatnot, that is not the place to bring your kid. That's not only inconsiderate and bad parenting for your kid, that's especially inconsiderate for all those other adults who are expecting this kind of sexier atmosphere and then have to also contend and grapple with the fact that there's a kid there just watching. You'd honestly probably stand to lose people from that dance class if you don't disallow the kids. Too Many Tanias wrote, I'm a single mom and yeah, sometimes I don't get to do cool adult activities because of my kids and childcare issues. But all good, one day the kids will be old enough to look after themselves and I will be able to go do fun adult stuff. I took my daughter to a women's self-defense class once, but I asked first, and it was a one-off. This next story is, my dad wants me to name my baby after him. I'm back. Those that have read my previous posts here know how weird and toxic my parents are. Yet I remain in contact with them because my 33-year-old brother is still living with them, and I can't bring myself to cut complete contact with them. I have dwindling hope that he will escape them, or even wants to. Well, I, 29-year-old female, am pregnant with my surprise baby number 3. They asked me if I'm going to find out the gender. I found out with my 2 others. Why not this one? I don't even know why they would ask, but okay. I told them we would. My mom barely hid her scoff. She is so against finding out gender before birth. I don't know why she's so stuck on it. Whatever. So my dad's response is, well, you know, if it's another boy, why don't you name him his name? Okay, 1, I don't like my dad's name. It's not common, but not rare. It's just weird. Like Billiam, Blaine, Earl, or Melvin. Not saying those are bad names. If you like them, cool. 2, I have this weird thing about naming my kids after living friends or relatives, especially close ones. I grew up with 2 cousins who had the same name, and my brother is named after a living uncle. It was just confusing. 3, my husband and I also have this opinion that if you feel the need to ask someone to name their kid after you, then you aren't really worthy of that honor. I've explained the first 2 reasons to my dad, but he doesn't seem to want to let it go, and they wonder why I don't call often. I think OP's reasons are obviously all very valid. The only thing is, I would feel like those reasons wouldn't even be an issue if they were somebody of such noteworthy status to OP that they would want to honor them in such a way. Like if they were just the absolute most amazing father ever, those other reasons maybe wouldn't even come to mind when OP thought about the possibility of naming them after their father. Vegetable Cod 2340 wrote, I wouldn't even give him reasons, just said I'd think about it and give him whatever name I wanted. Because he's not going to take no for an answer, just let him assume he got his way. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy entitled parent story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.